Have you ever wondered if the people closest to you are capable of betrayal for money? I discovered this in the worst possible way. My name is Thaddeus Blackwood. I'm 43 years old, and this is the story of how a winning ticket worth $280 million from the Powerball revealed the true face of the people I loved most. What they didn't know is that I had discovered their plans long before they put them into practice. Before starting the story, please subscribe to the channel and comment below. What would you do if you won the lottery? My life before that Saturday in March was simple, but not devoid of meaning. I had worked as a refrigeration technician for 22 years in the small town of Millbrook Springs, in the interior of Montana. I woke up at 5 in the morning, drank coffee that was too strong and black, and went out to fix air conditioning systems on farms and small businesses scattered across miles of dusty roads. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom house that I had inherited from my mother, Cordelia, when she passed away 12 years ago. The property was on a quiet street with a garden that I maintained with pride, and a garage where I spent nights working on old engines. I wasn't rich, but I didn't lack necessities either. My bank account rarely exceeded $3,000, but that was enough to live with dignity. I had always been single by choice. At 43 years old, I'd had some serious relationships, but none resulted in marriage. My family always pressured me about this, especially my younger sister Evangeline, who constantly told me I was wasting my life, living alone in that old and graceless house. Evangeline was 37 years old and lived in Denver with her husband, a lawyer named Bradford Kemp, and their 2 children, 15-year-old twins, Nathaniel and Sebastian. She had always been the successful one in the family, with a degree in administration, owner of a small business consulting company. She visited Millbrook Springs once a month, always with an air of superiority, as if she were doing a favor to her failed brother from the countryside. My other brother, Cornelius, 2 years older than me, worked as a supervisor at a fertilizer factory in Billings. He was married to Priscilla, a bitter woman who never hid the contempt she felt for me. Cornelius had always been envious even when we were children. If I got something, he would throw a tantrum until he got the same thing. In adolescence, this envy transformed into resentment. He never forgave me for inheriting our mother's house, even though I was the only one who took care of her during the last 5 years of her life. The family dynamic was tense, but I maintained contact out of a sense of duty. We met at Christmas, on important birthdays, and at the summer barbecues that Evangeline insisted on organizing. During these gatherings, I always felt like a stranger. They talked about investments, trips abroad, retirement plans, while I remained silent, drinking beer and observing. My only true friends were Jeremiah Jerry Thornfield, a retired mechanic who lived 3 houses down from mine, and Ezekiel Zeke Morrison, owner of the shop where I bought parts for my projects. Jerry had been like a substitute father after my father died when I was 17 years old. Zeke and I met in high school and maintained a solid friendship based on our passion for engines and fishing. Every Saturday, Jerry, Zeke, and I met at Murphy's Diner for breakfast. It had been our tradition for more than 15 years. We ate pancakes, bacon, and eggs while discussing sports, local politics, and the mechanical problems we had faced during the week. It was simple but meaningful. It was on one of those Saturdays, March 23rd, that everything changed. After breakfast, we stopped at the Red Eagle Station gas station to fill up Zeke's car. It was a ritual. We always bought Powerball tickets when the prize accumulated above $100 million. That week, it had reached $280 million. "Just one more ticket for the Dreamers Club," Jerry joked, handing $5 to the attendant. "If we ever win this, I promise to share it with you two," I said. Half serious, half joking. "Sure, Thaddeus. And I'm going to marry the Queen of England," Zeke mocked, laughing. I chose the same numbers as always: 5, 17, 26, 39, 42, and Powerball 23. They were important dates, birth and death anniversaries of my mother, the day I started working, our house number. I never really believed I would win, but there was something comforting about that weekly ritual of hope. During the week that followed, life continued normally. I fixed 3 refrigeration systems on different farms, helped Jerry change the engine of his old Ford pickup, and spent nights in the garage restoring a '79 Chevelle that I had bought for $800 from a bankrupt farmer. On Friday, Evangeline called to say she would be visiting over the weekend. She said she wanted to talk about some important things related to the family property. I found it strange because she had never shown interest in the house or the few lands we had. "Thaddeus, have you ever thought about selling this property? The real estate market is good and you could use that money to do something more productive with your life." "Evangeline, this house has family history. Mom was born here, we grew up here, as exactly why. It's time to move forward." Bradford did some research and the property is worth at least $120,000. Divided among the three of us, it would be considerable money. I hung up the phone, irritated. It was typical of her to show up with plans involving my patrimony without even consulting me properly first. On Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than normal. I had dreamed about my mother, a vivid dream where she told me to be prepared for changes. Normally, I don't pay attention to dreams, but that one had been different, more real. I went to the kitchen to prepare coffee when I heard the news on the radio. This week's Powerball prize has reached $280 million, and the drawing will be tonight at 10 o'clock. For some reason, I felt a chill down my spine. The day passed slowly. Jerry and Zeke came to help with the Chevelle, and we spent the entire afternoon in the garage dismantling the engine and cataloging the parts that needed to be replaced. It was meticulous work that required total concentration. Exactly what I needed to forget the irritating conversation with Evangeline. "This engine is going to be like new when we're done," said Zeke, cleaning his hands dirty with grease on an old rag. "You have a natural talent for this, Thaddeus." "It's just a matter of patience and respecting each part," I replied, admiring the clean engine block on the workbench. Jerry was quieter than normal, smoking his pipe in the corner of the garage. When I questioned him, he said he was just thinking about how time passes too quickly. At 74 years old, Jerry had become more philosophical, always reflecting on mortality and the meaning of simple things. "You know something," he said, releasing a puff of smoke. "You two are the sons I never had. This friendship of ours is worth more than any money in the world." Zeke and I exchanged glances. It was rare for Jerry to get sentimental like that. Around 8 in the evening, they left. I heated up a frozen lasagna, opened a Coors beer, and settled in the living room to watch television. The Powerball ticket was folded inside my wallet, forgotten until that moment. At 10 o'clock, I tuned into the lottery channel more out of habit than expectation. The presenter, a middle-aged blonde woman with an artificial smile, began the drawing with the usual forced enthusiasm. "Good evening, and welcome to this week's Powerball drawing. The accumulated prize is $280 million. The first balls began to come out of the machine, 5, 17, 26. My heart began to beat faster. I grabbed the ticket and checked the numbers. It was impossible, but the numbers matched. 39, 42. My hands began to tremble. Just one more number and the Powerball. And tonight's last number, 23. The world stopped. I checked the ticket 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. All the numbers were correct. I had won $280 million. For almost an hour, I sat on the sofa in total shock. I couldn't process the information. I tried to call Jerry, but no one answered when the phone rang at his house. I tried to call Zeke, but the phone was busy. Finally, I managed to talk to Jerry around midnight. "Jerry, I need you to come here now. It's urgent." "Thaddeus, what happened? Are you okay? Just come. And bring Zeke if you can reach him." 20 minutes later, both were in my living room, worried. I showed them the ticket without saying anything. Jerry put on his glasses and checked the numbers with the result I had written down. Zeke looked over his shoulder. The silence lasted almost 5 minutes. "Holy God," murmured Jerry. "Holy Almighty God." "You really won," said Zeke, his voice almost a whisper. $280 million. The rest of the night passed like a confused dream. We decided to maintain absolute secrecy until I decided how to proceed. Jerry suggested that I look for a specialized lawyer before claiming the prize. Zeke agreed, saying it was important to think about all the fiscal and legal implications. "Thaddeus," said Jerry before leaving, "your life is going to change completely. Prepare yourself." I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed on the porch observing the stars and trying to imagine what it would be like from now on. Part of me was euphoric, but another part felt deep fear. Jerry was right. Everything was going to change. On Sunday morning, Evangeline arrived with Bradford and the twins. They parked the black BMW in the driveway as if they owned the place. Evangeline entered without knocking, as she always did. "Thaddeus, we need to talk seriously about this property," she said, not even saying good morning. "Good morning to you, too." "Evangeline." Bradford had a folder full of papers and a pompous air of a lawyer who knew everything. The twins threw themselves on the sofa and started playing with their portable video games, completely ignoring my presence. "Thaddeus," said Bradford, opening the folder, "we made a detailed evaluation of this property. With the current market value, it's worth $125,000. Evangeline asked me to prepare the documents for the sale." "Documents for sale?" "I didn't say I wanted to sell." "But you're going to want to," interrupted Evangeline. "Look around you, Thaddeus. You're wasting your life in this old house, in this dead-end job, in this forgotten little town, with $41,000 in hand." "43, I corrected. "Whatever. With that money, you could start over. Buy an apartment in Denver, get a better job, maybe even find a wife." It was surreal. There I was, owner of a winning ticket worth $280 million, listening to my sister tell me how to spend $43,000. If it weren't so offensive, it would be comical. "And if I don't want to sell?" Bradford assumed his most irritating professional tone. "Well, technically you are the sole legal owner, so you have the right to refuse. But thinking rationally, it would be selfish of you to prevent your siblings from also benefiting from the family patrimony." "Family patrimony? Bradford, this house was left to me because I took care of my mother. You two showed up here twice a year." Evangeline turned red. "That's unfair. We had our own lives, our responsibilities." The discussion continued for 2 hours. The more they insisted, the more I realized how greedy and manipulative they were. In the end, I promised to think about the proposal just to get rid of them. After they left, I called Jerry. "They want me to sell the house to divide the money with them," I told him. "And now they're going to discover that you don't need the $43,000 anymore." Jerry laughed. "It's going to be interesting to see their reaction." But I was starting to have a bad intuition about all of this. On Monday morning, I drove to Billings to meet with a lottery specialist lawyer. Jerry had given me the name of Theodore Ashworth, a 60-year-old man with an impeccable reputation in the region. His office was in an elegant building downtown, very different from the rural world I knew. "Mr. Blackwood," said Ashworth after examining my ticket with a special magnifying glass, "I can confirm that this ticket is genuine. You have won $280 million. Hearing a specialist confirm that still seemed unreal. Now I need to explain your options. You can receive the prize in 30 annual installments of approximately $9.3 million, or you can opt for a lump sum payment of approximately $168 million. With taxes already deducted, which do you recommend?" "For someone in your situation, I recommend the lump sum payment. You're young, healthy, and having total control of the money, you can make investments that will yield much more over time." We spent 3 hours discussing investment strategies, creating trusts, asset protection, and tax implications. Ashworth recommended that I create a private foundation and several companies to protect my identity and assets. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to warn you about something very important. When people discover that you won the lottery, your life changes completely. Distant relatives appear asking for money. Scammers try to deceive you, and even close friends can change their behavior. What about family? Family, unfortunately, is usually where the biggest problems arise. Money reveals people's true character." I left the office with much to think about. Ashworth advised me not to tell anyone until the entire legal structure was set up. This would take at least 2 weeks. During the following days, I maintained my normal routine. I worked, talked with Jerry and Zeke, and pretended that nothing had changed. But I noticed that I was observing people differently, paying attention to small details that I had previously ignored. On Wednesday night, Cornelius showed up at my house without warning. It was unusual because he rarely visited me, especially alone. "Thaddeus, I need to talk to you about something important." I offered beer and we sat on the porch. Cornelius seemed nervous, avoiding looking directly at me. "It's about this story of Evangeline selling the house." "What about it?" "Well, the truth is that Priscilla and I are going through some financial difficulties. The factory is laying off people and I might be next. If you sold the house..." "Cornelius, why didn't you ever tell me about these problems?" "Pride, I guess. But now the situation is getting desperate. $43,000 would solve all our problems." For the first time, I felt genuine pity for my brother. He was clearly suffering, and that request didn't seem to come from greed but from real need. Let me think about it, okay? After he left, I kept reflecting. With $280 million, I could easily help Cornelius without selling the house. Actually, I could help the whole family in a way that they would never go through financial difficulties again. That's when I started planning how I would reveal the prize. I imagined the reaction of joy and surprise they would have. Maybe I would organize a special dinner, call everyone, and make the announcement in an exciting way. On Thursday, Jerry called me worried. "Thaddeus, I need to tell you something strange. Last night I saw Bradford in town. He was talking with that private investigator, Marcus Wolf. You know, that guy who works with divorce cases and insurance fraud?" I felt a chill in my stomach. Why would Bradford be talking with a private investigator? Are you sure it was Bradford? Absolute. They were in the parking lot of the Golden Horse Bar talking inside his car. It seemed like a very serious conversation. I spent the entire night awake thinking about it. Something wasn't right. On Friday morning, I decided to do my own investigation. I drove to the Golden Horse Bar and talked with Maggie, the owner, who knew all the regulars. Oh yes, that Denver lawyer was here on Thursday. He was talking with Marcus Wolf. They seemed to be planning something important because I saw the lawyer handing money to Marcus. My heart raced. Why would Bradford be paying a private investigator? I spent the weekend restless, trying to understand what was happening. On Monday, I had my answer in a completely unexpected way. I was working on a farm 15 kilometers from town when I received a call on my cell phone. It was Zeke, and he seemed agitated. "Thaddeus, you need to come to the shop now. It's urgent." "What happened?" "It's about your family. Just come." When I arrived at the shop, I found Zeke talking with Darren McAllister, a 25-year-old young man who worked as a bartender at the Golden Horse Bar on weekends. "Tell him what you told me," said Zeke to Darren. "Mr. Blackwood, last night I heard a conversation that I thought you should know about. Your sister was at the bar with her husband and a private investigator." My blood froze, and what were they talking about? Well, they were discussing how to prove that you are mentally incompetent. The world began to spin around me. What do you mean? The lawyer was saying that if they could prove that you have mental problems, they could get legal guardianship and take control of all your assets. The investigator said he was already collecting evidence. The fact that you live alone, never married, spend all your free time working on old cars. And your sister agreed with this? Darren swallowed hard. Sir, she was the one who suggested the idea. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. My own sister was planning to declare me mentally incompetent to steal my inheritance. There's more, continued Darren. They talked about hospitalizing you in a private psychiatric clinic in Denver. The investigator said he knows doctors who can confirm any diagnosis for payment. Zeke put his hand on my shoulder. Thaddeus, they want to have you forcibly committed to steal your house. That's when everything became clear. Their plan wasn't just to convince me to sell the house. They wanted to declare me incapable, assume control of all my assets, have me committed to an institution, and still appear as the concerned siblings who were taking care of their sick brother. What they didn't know was that this sick brother had become the richest man in the county. That night, I sat on the porch with a beer in my hand and the winning ticket on the table, observing the stars and planning my response. My family's betrayal had hurt me deeply, but it had also freed me from any moral obligation I felt toward them. I called Theodore Ashworth and told him the entire situation. Mr. Blackwood, this completely changes our strategy. I need to accelerate the entire asset protection process. If they file for guardianship before you claim and protect the prize, things could get complicated. What do you suggest? Claim the prize immediately and create an impenetrable legal structure. When they discover that you are a multimillionaire, the guardianship action will look like what it really is, a criminal attempt at fraud. On Tuesday morning, I traveled to Helena, Montana's capital, to officially claim my prize at the state lottery headquarters. The entire process was surreal. Official photos, interviews with the press. I wore dark glasses and a cap to make recognition difficult. And finally signing the documents that officially made me owner of $168 million. When the first deposit of $10 million appeared in my new private bank account, I still couldn't completely believe it. I had never seen so many zeros on a bank statement. Ashworth worked tirelessly during the entire week to create the asset protection structure. We established the Cordelia Memorial Foundation, in my mother's name, several investment companies, and irrevocable trusts that made my assets completely inaccessible to any futile legal action. "Now you are protected," said Ashworth on a Friday afternoon. "Even if they get a guardianship order, which is extremely unlikely, they won't be able to touch a cent of your money." During this week, I maintained my normal routine, but observing every movement of my family. Evangeline called 3 times insisting that I make a quick decision about selling the house. Cornelius showed up twice, increasingly desperate, begging me to consider his financial situation. What hurt me most was their falseness. Evangeline pretended concern for my well-being while planning to have me committed to a psychiatric clinic. Cornelius pretended financial need when he was actually an accomplice in the plan to rob me. On the following Monday, I received the information I was waiting for. Darren McAllister called me in the early afternoon. "Mr. Blackwood, they're meeting tonight at the Golden Horse Bar at 8 o'clock. The investigator said he has all the necessary evidence and that they're going to file the action tomorrow morning." "Thank you, Darren. You will be rewarded for your loyalty." It was time to reveal my cards. I called Jerry and Zeke and asked them to meet me at my house at 7 in the evening. When they arrived, they noticed that I was different, more serious and determined. "Guys, it's time for you to know everything," I said, showing them all the prize documentation, bank statements, and legal documents. Jerry was speechless for 5 complete minutes. Zeke started laughing hysterically. You really won $280 million, $168 million net to be exact. And your family is trying to rob you thinking you only have a house worth $125,000? Exactly. Jerry started shaking his head. "Thaddeus, this is poetic justice. It's revenge," I corrected, "and they deserve every second of what's coming." At 7:45, we headed toward the Golden Horse Bar. I drove my old Ford pickup, but on the passenger seat was a folder with documents worth more money than the entire town of Millbrook Springs. When we arrived at the bar, Bradford's car was parked outside along with Cornelius's pickup. We entered discreetly and sat at a table in the back, from where we could see and hear everything. Evangeline, Bradford, Cornelius, Priscilla, and private investigator Marcus Wolfe were seated at a large table, with papers scattered and half-finished drinks. The conversation was animated. "The medical documents are convincing," Marcus Wolfe was saying. "We have the history of social isolation, eccentric behavior, obsession with old machines. Any judge will agree that he needs supervision." "And how long until we get total control of the property?" asked Bradford. "With the right doctors, we can get the hospitalization in 15 days. Once hospitalized, you assume immediate legal guardianship." Priscilla, who was normally quiet, was particularly venomous. "Honestly, it will be a relief. He's always been strange, even when we were younger. Living alone in that house, without family, without normal friends, I murmured to Jerry. "What kind of person says something like that?" Evangeline was reviewing papers. "The important thing is that once we have control, we can sell the property, divide the money, and still continue receiving the guardianship benefits. It's a solution that helps everyone." "Except Thaddeus," said Cornelius. But without any real conviction, "Cornelius, he'll be in a place where he'll receive adequate care." Bradford replied with cynicism, "It's for his own good." That's when I stood up and walked to their table. The silence was instant and absolute. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me with a mixture of shock, fear, and guilt. "Good evening, family," I said, pulling up a chair and sitting at the head of the table. Marcus Wolfe tried to disguise, quickly gathering the papers. "Mr. Blackwood, what a coincidence to find you here." "Coincidence?" I smiled. "Marcus, you charged $3,000 from my brother-in-law to follow me for 2 weeks. I know exactly what you're planning." Evangeline turned red. "Thaddeus, we can explain." "Explain how?" I placed my folder on the table. "Explain how you're planning to declare me mentally incompetent. Explain how you intend to have me committed to a psychiatric clinic through bribery. Explain how you want to steal my property while pretending to be concerned about my well-being." Bradford tried to take control of the situation. "Thaddeus, you're misinterpreting." "Am I?" I opened the folder and took out a digital recording. "Darren McAllister recorded your entire conversation last week. I have evidence of conspiracy for fraud, attempted forced hospitalization, and bribery of medical professionals." The silence at the table was deafening. Cornelius was pale as a ghost. Priscilla looked at her own hands, unable to face me. But you know what? All of this has become irrelevant, I continued, taking more documents from the folder, because you made a fundamental error in your calculations. Placed on the table the official Montana lottery document with my photo and signature. You're trying to steal the inheritance of a man who won $280 million in the Powerball. For almost a minute, no one could speak. They looked at the document as if it were written in a foreign language. Evangeline was the first to react. This is impossible. You're lying. I placed the bank statements on the table. $168 million net, already deposited and legally protected. You were planning to rob me for $125,000 when I have more money than the entire population of this town combined. Bradford picked up the documents with trembling hands. These documents, are they genuine? Completely authentic. Verified and certified by the law firm of Theodore Ashworth in Billings. The transformation at the table was instant and disgusting. The guilty faces transformed into false smiles and greedy eyes. "Thaddeus," exclaimed Evangeline, trying to hug me. "What wonderful news. Why didn't you tell us before?" I moved away from the hug. "Because I wanted to see how far you would go." Cornelius tried the emotional approach. "Brother, you know we always rooted for you, Cornelius. 5 minutes ago you agreed to have me committed to a psychiatric clinic." Priscilla finally spoke. "Thaddeus, we were genuinely concerned about your mental health." I started to laugh. A loud and genuine laugh that echoed throughout the bar. "Concerned about my mental health? You bribed doctors to forge a psychiatric diagnosis. That's not concern, it's organized crime." Marcus Wolf tried to get up discreetly, but Jerry and Zeke had positioned themselves behind him. The private investigator realized there was no way out. "Now," I continued, "I'm going to explain how things are going to work from now on." I took more documents from the folder. "These are the complete evidence of your conspiracy. Recordings, photographs, payment receipts to Marcus, correspondence between you. Enough material for criminal prosecutions that could result in years in prison." Bradford, in his lawyer arrogance, tried to argue, "Thaddeus, even if you have this evidence, we are family." "Bradford, you are not my family. You are a parasite who married my sister." I turned to Evangeline. "And you stopped being my sister the moment you decided to betray me in the cruelest possible way." "But I can make it up to you," she said, with fake tears in her eyes. "Now that we know about your situation, now you want to be my best friends because you discovered I'm rich. That makes you even more despicable." Cornelius was completely defeated. "Thaddeus, I really need that financial help. Cornelius, if you had come to me honestly, told me your problems, and asked for help as a brother, I would have given much more than $43,000. But you chose to try to rob me." I placed the last set of documents on the table. "These are legal documents created by Mr. Ashworth. They are permanent restraining orders against all of you. If any of you approach me, my property, or try to contact me in any way, you will be arrested immediately." "You can't do this," screamed Evangeline. "We are your family. You decided that I was a burden that needed to be removed. Now I am removing you from my life." I got up to leave but turned one last time. "Oh, and Marcus, your investigation office will be closed next week. I have enough evidence of your illegal practices to ensure you never work in this profession again." The following months were of complete transformation. The first thing I did was significantly expand my help for the people who really mattered. Jerry received a new house, completely adapted for his elderly needs, plus a trust fund that guaranteed his financial security for the rest of his life. When I tried to give him the documents, the old man cried like a child. "Thaddeus, I can't accept this. Jerry, you were more of a father to me than my own father. Accept this as a gift from a grateful son." Zeke received a completely new mechanical shop, with state-of-the-art equipment and enough capital to expand the business. When he saw the new shop ready, he hugged me so tight he almost broke my ribs. "Partner, this is a dream I didn't even know I had." I also created an educational fund for the children of working families in Millbrook Springs. 25 full university scholarships renewed annually. The program launch ceremony was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Darren McAllister, the young bartender who alerted me about my family's plans, received a full scholarship to study law at the University of Montana. When I gave him the documentation, he couldn't stop thanking me. Mr. Blackwood, you completely changed my life. Darren, you had the courage to do the right thing when you had no obligation at all. That deserves to be rewarded. I kept my original house but renovated it completely, preserving the essence and family memories while modernizing everything. My mother's garden was restored exactly as she liked it, and I built a small memorial in her honor. The garage was expanded to accommodate my new passion, restoring classic cars not just as a hobby, but as a way to preserve history. I created Cordelia Classic Motors, a non-profit company dedicated to restoring antique vehicles and teaching the craft to young people in the region. 6 months after the drawing, I was in the garage working on the Chevelle when I received an unexpected visit. It was Cornelius alone, looking 10 years older. "Thaddeus," he said, standing at the garage entrance. "Can I talk to you for 5 minutes?" I continued working without looking at him. "The restraining orders are still in effect, Cornelius." "I know. But I need to say something." I finally turned to face him. He was clearly suffering with deep dark circles and a defeated posture. "Did you lose your job?" I asked. 3 months ago. Priscilla left me last week. She took half the furniture and went to live with her sister. I felt a pang of something that wasn't exactly pity, but also wasn't satisfaction. "And you came here why?" "To apologize, really." He swallowed hard. "And to thank you." "Thank me?" "For not prosecuting us criminally. Ashworth called me last week and said you decided not to present the evidence to the public prosecutor." It was true. Despite all the anger and disappointment, I hadn't been able to send my own family to prison. "Cornelius, you did something unforgivable, but you're still my family even though I don't want you in my life anymore." "I know, and I deserve it." He paused. "You were always the best of the three of us, Thaddeus. Even when we were children. Mom knew it. If you really believe that, then why did you try to rob me?" "Envy, pure envy." He started to cry. "You were always happier than me, even having less money." That irritated me. "When I saw the chance to finally have something you didn't have, you decided to destroy me to get it." "Yes. And now I've lost everything. My job, my wife, my brother, and my self-respect." We stood in silence for a few minutes. Finally, I took an envelope that was on the workbench and handed it to him. "What is this?" "A check for $50,000 and information about a job at a logistics company in Seattle. The salary is good, it has benefits, and no one there knows your history." He looked at the envelope with total disbelief. "Why?" "Because despite everything, I still remember the older brother who taught me to ride a bicycle and defended me from bullies at school." Cornelius began to sob. "I don't deserve this." "No, you don't deserve it. But I'm not you, Cornelius. I don't destroy people when I have the power to help them." "And the restraining orders?" "They remain in effect. Take that money, go to Seattle, and build a new life, but never try to contact me again." He nodded, put away the envelope, and turned to leave. At the garage door, he stopped and said without turning around, "Thaddeus, I love you, brother. I always loved you. And I'm sorry for ruining everything." After he left, I continued working on the Chevelle, but my mind was elsewhere. I had lost my family, but gained something more valuable: the certainty of who I really was. Today is Saturday morning, and I'm on the porch of my renovated house, drinking coffee and observing the garden that has grown lush over the last 2 years. Jerry is in the house next door tending to his roses. Zeke is at the new shop, teaching mechanics to a group of local teenagers. Life is good. I never heard from Evangeline or Bradford again. I learned through third parties that they moved to California, where Bradford opened a small law office. Apparently, Evangeline's consulting company went bankrupt after some clients discovered the scandal of the attempted fraud against me. Cornelius sent a letter from Seattle 6 months ago. I didn't open it, just kept it in a drawer. Maybe one day I'll be curious to know what he wrote. The Cordelia Memorial Foundation has already donated more than $5 million to educational and social causes in the region. Cordelia Classic Motors has become a tourist attraction, and young people from 3 states come here to learn automotive restoration. I continue living in the same house, driving the same pickup, although now I have a garage full of restored classic cars, and meeting Jerry and Zeke every Saturday at Murphy's Diner for our traditional breakfast. The difference is that now I know the true value of things. The money didn't change who I am. It just revealed who other people really were. Sometimes people ask me if I miss my family. The answer is complicated. I miss the idea I had of them, the family I thought we had. But I don't miss the people they really were. Jerry always says that money doesn't corrupt people. It just reveals who they always were. Evangeline was always manipulative and greedy. Cornelius was always envious and weak. Bradford was always an opportunist. Money just gave them the opportunity to show their true nature. On the other hand, Jerry was always loyal and generous. Zeke was always honest and hardworking. Darren was always brave and upright. Money gave me the opportunity to reward these qualities. The most important lesson I learned is this: true wealth is not in the money you have, but in the people who would stay by your side, even if you had nothing. Jerry and Zeke would be here with me if I were still just a refrigeration technician earning minimum wage. That's the wealth that really matters. Yesterday, a young reporter from local television came to interview me about the foundation. She asked if I regretted winning the lottery, considering all the family drama that followed. My answer was simple: I don't regret it one bit. The lottery prize was the best thing that ever happened to me, not because of the money, but because it showed me who really loved me and who was just pretending to love me. Now, at 45 years old, I'm happier than I ever imagined possible. I have purpose, I have true friends, and I have the peace of mind that comes from knowing that the people in my life are here for the right reasons. And the most ironic thing of all, my family tried to rob me for $125,000, and in the end they lost the chance to share $168 million. If they had been honest with me, we all could have been rich and happy. But, as Jerry always says, you can't buy character, and you can't fake integrity forever. The last thing I want to say is this: if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have power over people who betrayed you, remember that revenge and justice are different things. Revenge is about hurting them. Justice is about protecting yourself and rewarding those who deserve it. I chose justice, and I sleep well at night. The winning ticket is framed on my living room wall not as a trophy of wealth, but as a reminder that sometimes fate has a very peculiar sense of humor. $280 million changed my life completely, but not in the way people imagine. Money didn't give me happiness. It gave me the freedom to discover where true happiness already existed. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment. What would you do if you won the lottery? And from which city and country are you watching?